Hi everyone, welcome to TECSperts, where we here at the East Carolina talk about the upcoming football game.
Trailing East Carolina by 8. Frazier across the field. Boom! What a big hit.
This is Tori Poole, one of the football beat writers for the East Carolinian.
Taking a shot up top. Coverage on. Touchdown, Pirates.
Adam Decker, the only returner from last year besides me, who has now gone from football beat writer to football editor.
Just watch here. He's trying to cradle it. That ball never hit the ground.
This is Jaron Honeycutt, our other football beat writer. Hi, welcome to TECSperts. Today we're going to talk about ECU football. Of course, they got a big week coming up ahead after a big win last week. So guys, 41-3 of course. What did y'all see that really helped them to a win?
We saw what everyone's been wanting to see for like a month and a half now. It was just, this was the first game ECU's turned in since the NC State game that was, a complete game where they actually looked like themselves or what we thought that they were going to look like. Whereas in every other game, in the game against UConn last week, there weren't red zone turnovers, there weren't, lackadaisical plays, there weren't defensive players missing assignments. It was a complete game. So, maybe they're turning around, but I don't know. I think that's what we saw. We just saw what everyone's been wanting to see, a complete Pirate team. But, UConn isn't very good. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. So, we'll see what they got against Tulsa this week, see if they actually found their groove.
Yeah, it was 41, but it felt like they had like 82 points at the end of the game because you're not used to seeing everything run so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen how good they are in between the 20s. And now it's just become a joke because they're that good in between the 20s, but once they get in the red zone, they're basically, bottom tier. And just to see all three phases, like Montgomery said, come together, that was beautiful to watch. And that's the first really, even though they had a good win against State, beat Western Stanley, that was probably the best game to watch on tape this year. Not only because we're leaving, but they just looked good in all aspects. Everything was rolling. And it was a legitimate team. The offense was rolling against a good Connecticut defense. That defense isn't a joke, but it was fun to watch finally.
Yeah, Scotty Montgomery said it was the most complete game by far they've had all season. So, from all three phases. So if he feels that way, that's how it was.
Right. So, Tori, you had kind of an article this week about the special teams improving. What did you see from the special teams that makes you think that that's what you're going to see going forward?
Just at the start of the season, you kind of saw a special teams unit that wasn't really helping out the ECU team as a whole. There were, blocked field goals, there were blocked punts, and then not to mention on the return game, it was just they couldn't pin them deep for nothing. It was every time the team was starting on, their 40-yard line, 50-yard line, sometimes even the ECU. It's by getting them to start bringing that much pressure and pinning them down deep. And, Plowman was talking about how without the missed field goals, he only had missed one field goal. And it just goes to show that, whenever your special teams isn't doing things to hurt you, it can really help push the team in the right direction, especially with the fumble recovery this week. You saw that being a huge momentum builder. And especially when you compared this week's game or this past week's game to the Virginia Tech game, it's a totally different outcome of how the special teams play and how it affected the team as a whole.
Joe Carter is I guess to a coach, the special team version of Zay Jones. He's an animal, and it really it's tough because you don't have special teams. You do have special teams accolades, but you don't have to see all the true numbers because you don't see what you do to free up other people to get open and make tackles. And Joe Carter and Scotty Montgomery have said it, consistently over the past I think month and a half about how amazing his special team is compared to special team play, compared to everyone else on the team. And he sticks out on tape. He had a big hit last week. I think, did he cause the fumble?
He did.
He caused that fumble, and he's an animal, and he doesn't get all the credit, but he does from Coach Scotty. Maybe people watching don't realize how much of an animal he is on there.
It's also worth noting too that last year the Joe Carter of last year's team was Cam White. who is now a starting middle linebacker on ECU's defense. So, Joe Carter, that's where you make your name. If you're not getting the opportunities, you got to take advantage of it when you're on the field, and that's what he seems to be doing.
Exactly.
It goes to show, he was talking about how he got hurt for a couple of games there this season, and then coming back, he's going to be a senior or junior next season. He wants to be able to prove himself, especially with so many people graduating. It just goes to show that what you're talking about, Cam White being the one who moved up, he wanted to do the same thing in the future.
All right, so coming into this Tulsa game, Tulsa's a really good team, obviously. 6-2, the only 2 losses being against Ohio State and Houston, 2 teams who are pretty elite this year. So how do you expect the Pirates to play this week? Do you think that they'll play well, or do you think that maybe last week was more of an aspiration?
I think the Pirates are going to build off the momentum that they had last week. I expect them to come out, and maybe not look as sloppy. They're not going to come out and turn the ball over in the red zone as much, or poor fumbles, or missed tackles. I'm expecting them to look better than they did prior to the Connecticut game, but I just think that they're going to be outmatched. I think Tulsa's up front, their offensive line is extremely big. They're experienced this year, and their ground game has just been astronomical this year. That's really where their bread and butter is. So I think ECU's going to play well. I think you'll be able to tell that they are playing better. I just think no one was expecting Tulsa to go 6-2 last year. They were a mediocre team at best last year, with the same quarterback, Dane Evans. So they really surprised people. Yeah, lost to Houston, who I believe when they played Houston was ranked top 10 at that time. They only lost by 1 field goal or 1 touchdown in that game, and that they did get smacked by Ohio State. But Ohio State is one of the best teams in the country. You can't blame them for that. So Tulsa's really turned things around, and they're playing extremely well this year. So ECU's just going to be outmatched in my opinion, but I think it's going to be promising.
ECU will get a chance to find out where their run defense is at, because Flanders is a stud. I mean, he's no joke. He 200 and almost over 250 yards last week, and then 5 touchdowns. Yep. And I don't care who you're playing. Those are big numbers on any team. And ECU's defense, they're over 76th in the nation, I think, and with rushing. I mean, but they've done a lot of personnel changes. You got Cam and Jordan Williams both in there now. We're going to see where that gets them. You're going to see how McGill is finally up, looking around 100%. I mean, but it's just, like you said, they have so many hog mollies up front that are just absolutely gigantic. That's a huge O-line over there. So it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to be the matchup right there is ECU's rushing defense versus Tulsa's run game, because Tulsa builds off their run game. Evans he has a good game depending on how they run, on how well they're running. So
I feel like we talk about it every week. I feel like we bring up the Navy game every week just because ECU plays them so poorly. But also Tulsa only lost by, or no, never mind. Yeah, I got those mixed up. I'm thinking of UConn. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, Dane Evans, they're experienced too. Scotty Montgomery really talked about that in the press conference. It's just that how experienced Tulsa is. Dane Evans was their quarterback last year. Their offensive line, they're all juniors and seniors who have played last year. So maybe that's why they've really come through the forefront of the AAC this year. They're in second place team, and maybe it's just the experience. You start a lot of inexperienced guys last year. Now they got a year under their belt and they're playing better than people predicted. So Tulsa's dangerous.
They're so solid too all around because they have good receivers too. They have receivers 55 catches, 44 catches, and 33 catches. So even though you might not have just one stud, you have solidarity. You can go here and be fun. You can spread it out. That's what really strikes fear in the defensive coordinators is when the offense that can hit you on all faucets. So we'll see how that ECU defense holds up this Saturday. It'll be a big chance.
I mean, it'll be just interesting all around to see if the same team that played UConn will show up to play in this game, because I mean, like you said, UConn's not really one of the bigger teams to face in the first place, and we talked the week before about how UConn's offense wasn't really anything to really put up against, but will the defense still be able to bring pressure on the quarterback like they did against UConn? Will the special teams still be able to hold up the way they did? It just all depends on what they do going into this game, really.
Away game too.
Yeah.
It's at Tulsa.
And Tulsa's undefeated at home.
which seems to be a big deal for ECU. They seem to only play well at home. So.
All right, guys. So kind of a bigger picture question here. Of course, ECU sitting there at 5 losses right now.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't have more than 6 to get into a bowl game. Do you think that maybe, while they may not reach a bowl game, that this would be a successful season in the fact that maybe they build off into next year's team?
Well, I think no matter which way you look at it, I think you would have been misguided if you went into this season expecting ECU to be, what they were 2 years ago when they were ranked, 16th in the nation. I feel like that would have been extremely misguided just because, with the new coach, not having the personnel that really fits his scheme and his defensive scheme, and we're seeing with the
new coach, new quarterback, new running back,
new coordinators, everything. So we're seeing. I think they just got their 19th commitment last night from incoming freshmen next year. So either way, this was going to be a transition year. I think it just surprised people with how much or how badly that they looked. But I don't know if I would call this a successful season. I think if you finish below 6 or 500, it's not going to be, you can't really consider that a successful season. But as far as getting his name out there, getting his player, I think we're seeing more with the offense with the UConn. They could be more comfortable with the playbook now, just things schematically that's going on. So, I guess you could say it was a good thing for them to get the rough patches out, but I don't.
Rough patches.
Yeah, but if they don't win this game, I think they're going to lose to Navy and they're going to be below 500. So I think you have to aim for 500 at least.
The only thing, you look at is this season a success? Also, I think for Montgomery and for the team, and differently, because it will be tough if you see ECU lose this Saturday and you have have players not wanting to do a team effort, more so of an individual thing these last games because their confidence is getting down. And then you have Montgomery, who you're going to see how he coaches, with that morale and when you have no motivation to win. So and then you can't really judge him and see if it's a successful year until on down the road next year when you see how he learned from what he did this year. So this is as every game has been, as they keep going because they've dug themselves in such a huge hole. This is a huge game coming up.
They have to win this if they want to postseason.
All right, Tori, I just want to hear your opinion on it. What do you think before we go to predictions?
Oh, they kind of touched on most of it. The thing is this wasn't a successful season as far as win losses go. But when you look at it for long term, it's getting the coaches used to Montgomery. It's getting the fans and everybody else used to not having Ruff McNeil around. And I don't know. It's not a successful season as far as the wins go, but as far as building up the team and getting the team ready for the future, I think in that sense it was.
All right, we're going to finish up predictions here, and we're going to start down there with the champion from last week, Adam.
Champion every week, but I'm taking Tulsa 34-24. I think ECU's going to come out and they're going to look pretty good. I think they're going to look better than they had. But I just think they're outmatched with Tulsa. Tulsa's just in a groove this year, and they're killing it. But I will say, I'm not going to say who. I overheard from a football player today that they're pulling out all the stops and they're running a crazy trick play. I overheard him talking. So I'm not going to say who, but look out for a crazy trick play. But Tulsa 34-24.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
I think that Montgomery has already showed that he's learned this year and changed up that personnel, and they looked great last week. He really is showing how good of a coach he can be by, putting these players where they need to go and seeing talent, and he's proven that. But he's gonna come in with a lot of confidence, and they're gonna have a good first half. But I just don't think that ECU can keep up with them. So I'm gonna say Tulsa, and I did say Tulsa 41-35.
Similar statement, 41-24, I think, just because ECU will start off good, but their defense is going to get worn down with that run game. They're going to be running it down their throats, and it's going to wear them out. But they'll hang on for the beginning, but then they'll lose in the second half.
All right, that was TECSperts. Thank you for joining us. Watch us again next week.